everybody, how's it going? Stout Man coming back at you once again, and today I am answering a bunch of questions put forward in a game called Horror Tag here on YouTube. My good friend Skinslip tagged me in this game. We answer questions about horror movies, and then I tag other people, which is going to be difficult because most of the people I know on YouTube probably won't participate in this horror tag thing. But that being said, I figured why not? Why not do it anyways? Regardless, I'm not going to let something like that stop me from having a little fun. Let's just get down to it. This is going to be a lot of fun, I think. You get to know a little bit more about me and my experiences with horror films and all that good stuff. So, yeah. So let's just get right down to it and start some horror tag, shall we? Alright, so the first question is, what is the first horror movie that you remember watching? And, to be quite honest, I don't remember. The question is, what's the first horror movie you remember watching? So, the first you remember actually watching. And the problem with that is that the first one I actually remember watching was when I was like 11. And I know for a fact that I watched horror movies before that. I just don't remember what they were. I remember that I was not exactly a stranger to horror movies, otherwise I would have been too afraid to watch some of the horror movies that I did watch and when I got to be like 11 and 12 years old and whatnot. My first R-rated movie was Terminator 2 when I was 8. So, I was no stranger to kind of scary, violent stuff in movies, essentially. And being somebody who grew up watching a lot of cable television, stuff like TNT, Monster Vision even sometimes, I watched a lot of movies on cable television, as I've expressed previously in other videos. So I know for a fact that this movie that I'm going to mention is not the first one that I watched, but it's the first one that I remember watching. It's the first one that I have a vivid memory of watching, and that's probably because it's the first horror movie that I watched with a friend when they were staying over, at my house for the night, for the weekend. I think it was a Friday night. During the summer, too, and they were staying over for the weekend, and we were just having good old-fashioned fun, and we decided to rent a horror movie to, watch a scary movie before we go to bed. And lo and behold, we decided to watch the movie It for our horror movie that night. That's right, Stephen King's It. Yeah, this definitely was a creepy movie. I remember being pretty creeped out by it, but I don't remember being so scared by it that I was just like, I couldn't sleep. I know I had trouble getting to sleep that night. I don't know why. This is like one of the memories I have. I have such a bad memory, right? But I remember having trouble getting to sleep that night for like maybe 30 minutes. And I thought that I saw like shadow people on the stairs. No doubt because I was all creeped out by this movie. But I did eventually get to sleep. And another thing that was bugging me that night was that I had a really bad sunburn because we had been out all day and having fun and whatnot earlier that day. So, yeah, I got a sunburn because I am a ginger and I am extremely white, and that kind of thing just happens to us. So, yeah, so that also made it difficult to fall asleep that night, and, watching it didn't exactly make it any easier per se, but I would say I wasn't really necessarily too scared by it, but it definitely did affect me, and it definitely was pretty scary. And watching it now, I remark about that because I believe this is a pretty long movie, right? It was originally 187 minutes. It was originally a mini-series, and then they put it on, I believe, well, I know we had to have watched it on VHS because I was 11 at the time. And then they put it on VHS, and we watched it that night, and I can't believe we must have started watching it like 10 or 11 or something because we didn't get to sleep until like 2:30 or something like that because of the movie we're watching. So that, I guess, would be my first horror movie memory, and my second horror movie memory would be watching all three, at the time, they're three Chucky movies on VHS. So yeah, of course, I'm a ginger, I'm a redhead. I had to watch the Chucky movies. I had to see what everyone was joking about when they were making fun of me and call me Chucky. So that was the first horror movie that I have any vivid memories of actually watching. The others are just, you know, pulled back there in an amalgamation of other stuff that I was watching growing up when I was getting into movies and just starting to get into them, you know. So that's just how it is. On to the next question. So the next question is, what is your favorite horror movie? And I have to say that this is another movie that I might have even watched it before it, but I don't know if I did. All I know is that it's definitely my favorite. I would have to say, out of all of them, it's my favorite. Poltergeist. I just love Poltergeist. The special effects are freaking awesome. It's just a really creepy movie, and that's my kind of movie. My kind of horror movie is something that's maybe not extremely violent, maybe not a slasher. In fact, I'm really not a huge fan of slashers, but more of a psychological thing and more of a, you know, based on something that can't be proven or disproven kind of thing. Ghosts are perfect for that. And I love their approach to ghosts in this movie. It was just really creepy and really well done, and all the acting was really good. And then when you learn about all the stuff that happened behind the scenes and how they actually did all the effects and how they actually used real dead bodies and real skeletons and whatnot, like, creepy stuff. Like, why did that affect me so much? And then I read up on that later on in life. Like, yep, that's probably why. So, yeah, Poltergeist, my favorite horror movie. What is your favorite horror movie genre? Well, my favorite horror movie genre is probably psychological horror. I love psychological horror movies. Particularly, I like things that most people don't like. The slow, plotting, building, suspenseful horror movies. The stuff that fits more into the gothic territory than anything else. But if I had to pick any one favorite subgenre of horror movies that I enjoy the most, it'd probably be psychological thrillers, psychological horrors, anything that just kind of screws with your mind. I really dig those movies. What horror genre scares you the most? Well, again, I'm going to have to go with psychological horror on this. I mean, like I said, it's my favorite, and it's my favorite for a reason, because it genuinely scares the crap out of me. The stuff that really scares me and creeps me out is the stuff that slowly builds up. But I also enjoy the psychological stuff that's just like, what the hell is even going on here? And when they even combine those two things together, it's really cool to me. So, yeah, psychological, I guess, is what I would say. What is the last horror movie that actually scared you? Well, I wonder if it could be Babadook. Yeah, The Babadook is definitely the last horror movie that I watched that actually scared me. I also recently watched The Canal with my friend Skinslip, who tagged me here. And although I thought it was an interesting movie, and it definitely built up after the first 15 minutes, which were, I won't say it started slow, I would just say that the way that it started, it wasn't immediately obvious that I was watching a horror movie. And that could be a good thing, or it could be a bad thing, depending on how you would take that. But regardless, where it went, somewhat predictable at a certain point. You have to get to a certain point in the movie before the rest becomes predictable. But it wasn't necessarily a bad movie. It was alright. Blah, 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 blah. Enough about that. Enough about The Canal. Only reason I mention it is because I wanted to make it clear that I saw it, and while it was good, I don't think it was necessarily something that scared me. So, if I had to pick one movie that I feel like is the last movie that I watched that genuinely scared me, it would be The Babadook. Babadook was pretty freaking terrifying for a lot of good reasons. If there was any other movie I would have to pick that I would say scared me, would be recently. I mean, I don't remember which one I watched first, so I'm going to mention this in addition to the Babadook. It might have actually been The Testament. Depending on when we watched The Testament, I don't remember. But The Testament, a Ty West movie, genuinely freaky, scary movie. Not everybody's cup of tea, but it scared the crap out of me. So, yeah. Because, I mean, when they do a movie like that and it feels incredibly real and they can make something that's just even slightly terrifying and incredibly real, then that gets me, because unlike other horror movies where I'm completely out of the picture and I don't believe for a second that this could ever happen to me, with those movies where they actually make you believe that what you're seeing is probably maybe even real and it's so very true to life, those are the ones that affect me the most, because they feel so real. They could happen to me, that kind of thing. So, yeah, The Testament was it might have been the last one. It might have been The Babadook. Whichever one it was, they were both pretty terrifying movies. Who is your ultimate scream queen? Alright, so this question is double-pronged. They have past and present. So I'm guessing that what they mean by that is, who is your ultimate scream queen past and who is your ultimate scream queen present? Or at least that's how I chose to take it. So if I'm going ultimate scream queen of the past, I'm going to have to go with Sigourney Weaver. I know Ghostbusters isn't like a horror movie, but it is kind of in that sort of horror comedy subgenre, right? And then she, of course, did Alien, the Alien franchise, and she was excellent in that. Yeah, I would have to go with Sigourney Weaver. She's my favorite older scream queen. I liked her more than Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm sorry, and she was like the original, but what are you going to do? I like Sigourney Weaver. If I had to choose anyone else besides her, I'd probably pick Dee Wallace. As for present scream queens, I think I would pick Catherine Isabel. She starred, I won't say most recently. Actually, most recently, I think she starred in like Hannibal, the TV show. But she also starred in a Soska Sisters movie called American Mary, and that movie was absolutely fantastic. It's probably one of the best horror movies I've seen in the last few years. Definitely in the top 10, top 20, And it just didn't really get a lot of press at all. Didn't get a lot of notoriety. But she was just so fantastic in that role. And she has a lot of experience, too, because she also did, like, the Ginger Snaps movies. And she also did, I believe, like, an episode or two of X-Files. And, she has experience with the horror and the gothic stuff in film and on television and whatnot. And she's really good at that. And honestly, she's at that stage in her career where she could become really big as a scream queen if she continues to do more horror movies and more stuff like that. So, yeah, if I had to pick my favorite present scream queen, it would be her. What is a concept that you would like to see in a horror movie? Alright, so I had to think about this one long and hard. I really, no pun intended, I really had to take some time to actually think about this because, it's kind of like asking somebody to storyboard something out of nowhere, just out of thin air. And I'm a somewhat creative guy, I'd like to think, and I'm a writer, but I just, it just wasn't immediately coming to me. So it took me like 5 to 10 minutes to actually come up with something. So yeah, 5 to 10 minutes, I guess, wasn't really a long time, but when you're just trying to get a video out there for this horror tag thing, it kind of felt longer than it really was. It's like, come on, I'm just supposed to be able to turn this on and go. So anyways, the story that I came up with, and just, if you hate the idea, you hate the idea. If you love the idea, you love the idea. But my idea was to follow someone around as they try to escape a crime. The movie starts after they commit the crime. And then as the movie goes along, they visit all these different places that are connected to their past and to their history and their life and into how they actually got to the point where they committed whatever the crime was. And as we go to all these places and learn all of these things about the character, all of the plot points of how the crime actually happened and why it happened just slowly start to build up. So it's kind of, I would say, kind of like Memento in a lot of ways. And then there was another movie similar to that Adrian Brody did a year or two ago. It's on Netflix now, I believe, where he was stranded out in the wilderness and he just kept having all these memories of how he even got there. And kind of like that, only we get to see like in real time, essentially, not through memories, but through them going to all these places, talking to people, and having these experiences and whatnot in their lives. We get to slowly get that story revealed to us, essentially. That's the idea that I had. I think it would be a really cool horror movie. What is your favorite on-screen kill? Gee, you really put people on the spot, don't you? If I have to pick one, I'm going to pick The Cell. I'm going to pick that scene from The Cell where, you know, they're in the dream world and that guy is hooked up to that device, that medieval torture device or whatever, that whatever, I think it's like a lady that's spinning the device, and every time she spins it, it just twirls up his intestines on this spiky thing, and it's just, you hear the screams of agony as his intestines are being wound up onto this thing, and so yeah, that's a pretty damn freaky on-screen kill. What is your favorite horror franchise? Well, I mean, didn't I show you already? Don't you know about Poltergeist? Yeah, I really like the Poltergeist series. I have not actually seen the Poltergeist TV series. I've heard good and bad things about it. But yeah, I like the first, second, and third movie of this. I feel like they all have their own values. They have, each one has its own value to it. So like the second one is great because it's got the Reverend, and the Reverend is really creepy, and the Reverend is based on a character from Night of the Hunter, played by Robert Mitchum, that Reverend character. And it's a really well done, really creepy movie. And yes, it's got a little bit of corn and cheese to it, but it's also it's also really cool that they, you know, paid homage to the whole Night of the Hunter thing. And then the third movie is really cool because if you think about it in terms of it being like modern and postmodern, it's almost like in that movie the horror of modernity is terrifying all of these people, these people living in the 80s, essentially. Because in the 80s, it's like, oh God, fuck all that old stuff, right? I don't know. I read into it a lot, but I really feel like there's something to that. I might even write about that at some point, or maybe even do a video about it. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot more to the third movie than people give it credit for. A lot of people think it just sucks and didn't need to happen. And like, yeah, you might be right that it didn't need to happen, but I don't think it sucks. I think there is a little bit of value there, albeit something you really have to dig for, and you know you don't really want to dig for it because on top of it all, it's not really a great, on the surface, it's not really a great movie. So, you know, if the only thing you can get from the movie is something that you have to dig for, and it's not even something that really inspires you to dig, then why would you dig? I understand that completely. But I'm just saying, if you do dig, you might actually find something there. Just a little bit of interesting stuff there. And the final question, thank God we are finally done, is a simple one. One that should be easy for everybody to answer, quite frankly. Who is your favorite horror director? John Carpenter, and I am done here. Good night, everybody! But yeah, I like John Carpenter. I think he's probably one of the greatest horror directors of all time. He's just one of the greatest directors of all time. He's just really good. And he really, like, inspired horror for generations to come. So it's like, you know, if you say you like horror movies now, you kind of have him to thank for it. That's how I feel. So, yeah, John Carpenter. That's an easy one for me. But anyways, I guess since it's a Game of Horror tag, I have to tag some people myself. So I'm going to try and tag people who I know like movies and who I know will, well, horror movies in particular, and who I know will probably maybe answer this, maybe participate in it. So my first tag is going to be R. Chattaway, Ryan Chattaway. He may have already been tagged, but I don't know. My second tag is going to be Krazy Jason from Kakalaki Movies. My third tag is going to be Travis Bierwagen here on the YouTubes. And my fourth tag, he may not even answer, he may not even see this, he may not even care, but he doesn't really do these types of videos very frequently. But my fourth tag would be Wet Movie 1! I mean, who knows? Maybe he's been tagged a dozen times already, too. But, yeah. Why not, you know? Who knows? Maybe there's a chance. Maybe there's a chance. But, yeah, that'll do it for today. I guess that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. Peace.